Hello.
Hello. Afternoon.
Yeah.
Normally it's morning, but this time it's not morning.
It's a late start today, and it's not through our choice. It's the tide's choice.
Really, it's the moon's
I
choice.
knew you were going to say. I predicted. That's why I looked at you. I was like, 3, 2, 1.
Fair enough. Orbital mechanics have made the decision that we're going to be leaving now.
We could have left at 5 a.m. and honestly, we were awake at 5 a.m. and we could have gone.
Yeah, but we needed our lunch window. So we're going up. We're basically redoing roughly 2/3 of the journey we did yesterday in the other direction. So you might want to go back to the last video and just watch it in reverse. Get the same ultimate outcome. Anyway, yeah. So
we're waiting for the tide to turn. So at the moment, the tide is in theory coming in, going upstream.
And it'll start going that way.
And we want to leave just as it turns, really, so we can ride it to Gainsborough, but it's not like if we leave before or after, it doesn't really matter.
No.
And then it just means it's faster and you use less fuel. And then it should be just a lovely cruise in the 29-degree heat.
Yeah, it's really hot today.
Yeah.
Because, well, partially, I mean, not that I can really blame it on the weather, but yeah, it's building up to a big thunderstorm over the next couple of days, so it's getting hot and muggy, and predictions are solid for it to break tomorrow afternoon, and we'll be partway to Keedby at that point, so we may drown on the boat or we may get blown around. We'll find out.
But right now I'd take a thunderstorm over this.
It's pretty bloody hot. Yeah, I mean, we went for a walk yesterday just up to the lock to check on, you know, today's timings and stuff, and
the lock's like there.
Yeah,
it's really not far.
And George was just panting like mad, and we more or less emptied an entire water bottle into his dish to just get him to cool down.
We can't really walk him like this, so we've got him on the back, we've got water for him, and I've got a wet towel to try and keep him cool. But
we ended up spending the whole day just sitting in front of a fan until 8 o'clock as the sun finally went down, and then we were able to go for more of a little walk into the town. Yeah,
we walked through the village. I mean, we didn't go to the village centre, I don't think. There's not much there. We walked up to the old railway viaduct that we came under yesterday. It's not a train line anymore. They've turned it into a walk.
Little pedestrian. It's not actually a public footpath. It says that it's a permissive footpath. But, yeah.
It's quite interesting going up there, but I was disappointed that for most of the span, you can't see the view of the river because it's just like solid steel, iron, whatever it is.
Siding, yeah.
Siding.
Well, it's a grade 2 structure, and back in the day, you would have been, you know, higher up on a train, so you would have been able to see over the sides.
Well, yeah.
So they don't really need windows. But yeah, it would be nice if there was some view.
But before you go on it, before you kind of cross the main span, you can see like down onto the river, and it is lovely. And view over the ruins of the castle that's not a castle. Yeah,
it was slighted. It was built in the 1500s, and then it was in the Civil War, and ultimately taken by the parliamentarians from the royalists, and they slighted it so that it couldn't be reused. So there's really just 3 walls, and they did a good job. You clearly can't use any of that for any sort of defenses. It wasn't a military emplacement though, so I guess it wasn't really built to not come down.
But yeah, it feels really weird to be turning around when there's a new navigation that we haven't been on. Well, I say new, it's the oldest navigation, the Vostok. And like when we walked up yesterday, you could kind of see off into the distance, and I was like, I want to go that way. It looks so nice.
Yeah. But we'll be coming back here after we eventually make the loop down past Nottingham. We'll be passing the Arrow Wash again, then coming up the Upper Trent, and
we will that way and then this way.
Yeah, we will find ourselves coming back to this exact same point.
Which is why we did this loop down. So it all makes sense. It's all logical. It just does feel a bit strange to be at the beginning of a new canal.
Well, because I keep trying to explain to people, they say, "Oh, we're closing off a loop." Yeah, but we're closing off a loop we haven't opened yet. Maybe I shouldn't point it that way. We are interdicting a loop we will make in quite a bit of time. Yeah.
So anyway, we need to turn the boat. It's pretty wide here, so it should be no problem.
Yeah, all I'm going to do actually is just take the rope off the back, attach it to the other davit, and then just literally spin us.
But don't get off the boat. Like,
No.
Don't let the boat float.
Huh?
I just know.
It'll still be floating.
Float off.
No, I'm not going to let it float. I get you. Yeah, right. I'm like, I'm not sinking the damn thing.
I'm nervous again, even though there's nothing to be nervous about. It's ridiculous. The thing I'm nervous about is mooring up at Gainsborough, because we will be on a flowing river, a tidal flow.
Yeah.
So Michael's already explained to me that if the river is still flowing downstream, like in our direction,
Which it probably will be quite, yeah.
So if we try and moor up in that direction, it'll be harder.
Yeah, because then I'm just trying to use reverse to slow us.
But so he's going to probably spin around and then go
Come
into
back.
the tide to do a more controlled.
Yeah, then I can kill all the momentum and just all I have to do then is just hover.
So the turn will be uncomfortable, because when we turned out of West Stockworth yesterday, we had a slight tilt, which felt slightly uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And
I will probably go the other way. Depending on what we've got, I will probably go towards the moorings and then spin around this way.
it's up to you.
So you know, anyway, I'm going to do a fish hook.
Yeah, unless the tide's turned, which is unlikely.
Yeah. But
Right.
the fish hook could be a little bit like, wee! So, yeah.
I'm not looking for thrills, Michael.
Okay, there will be no wee.
It might
Except
be,
for maybe from George.
might be a little bit.
All right, we ready to go?
I don't think we mentioned it in the introduction, but we're actually moored on a shortcut that leads from the River Trent to Torksey Loch. We're on tidal waters, and the pontoon we are on raises and falls with the water, but we are not in the main flow of the river. With the stern line attached to the pontoon as planned, I spin the boat in place. We take a quick walk down to the end of the pontoon to check on the tide, and then it's all aboard for the trip back north. Joe has the stern set up with the life jackets, water, food, the radio, and supplies for George, but as we set off I realize that we don't actually have the chart. So much for being organized today. Joe quickly retrieves it from inside the boat. It's so hot today. Because of the tide times, we couldn't leave until 1 o'clock, and so we're traveling in the heat of the midday sun. A quick check that there are no boats coming in either direction, and we turn north downstream. That's quite the view of the 8 cooling towers of Cottam Power Station. There's a slight breeze on the river, but we're all pretty much melting back here. We get a much better view of Torksey Castle in this direction. Unfortunately, it's just that little bit too far away for the camera to do it justice. Here's Torksey Viaduct, where we walked to last night. There's a dog cooling down in the river over there. George is a bit miffed, as Joe wouldn't let him take a swim last night. The viaduct was built by the Manchester, Sheffield and Lincolnshire Railway Company, and opened in 1850. It was part of the Clarborough Junction to Sykes branch line. The line was closed in November 1957, and it wasn't until 2016 that it was formally opened for foot traffic across the river. And yeah, Joe seems to think that it would be a good idea for windows to be cut in the side so that walkers can look out over the river. It has Grade 2 listing status, so those windows are pretty unlikely. That's the West Burton Power Station you can see off in the distance. It's fairly open along the floodplain, so the views mainly consist of grazing cows and sheep on green fields, but with the odd power station in the background. It's a gorgeous day to be out on the river. We just all wish it wasn't quite so hot. Cruising on a canal, you are occasionally treated to a shady corridor of trees, but on the river it's just all open. Here we are back at Trent Port, and today we get a much better view of the Martin windmill. There was once many houses along the bank here, but they were demolished in the 1950s. Littleborough's origins have been traced back to Roman times, when the town was known as Segolocum. There was a military road between Doncaster and Lincoln, and this is where the road crossed the river. Because of this, a significant settlement built up around the crossing. A 5.5-meter wide causeway spanned the water, supported by 4-meter long oak piles that were driven into the riverbed. In 1820, the river was deepened by the Trent Navigation Board to allow grain and coal barges to navigate the water. At this time, the only way to cross the river was via a chain ferry, but in 1910 the ferry collided with a barge and sank, and so it was abandoned. I don't know where these sheep are finding their energy from, especially in their woolly coats. You see that white cloud in the sky behind my head? It's not actually a cloud, it's the smoke trail of some aerobatic stunt planes. We think they're the Red Arrows, who are based in Lincoln, not too far away. We get some fleeting views of them over the next 15 minutes, trailing red, white, and blue smoke and drawing a huge heart in the sky. Unfortunately, we didn't capture any of it, so you'll just have to take our word for it that it was pretty spectacular. It's got me thinking I would really like to get to an air show at some point soon. Here's what remains of the fading heart. The planes are out there somewhere, but it seems like whenever Joe points the camera towards them, they duck down below the tree line. Spiller's Mill comes into view, so we are nearly at the pontoon moorings we're aiming for. It really is a massive site. Gainsborough was apparently once known as Britain's most inland port, and it has a long history of river shipping, which explains the huge wharves that line the river here. Commercial ships no longer come this far upstream, though. Before the bridge was built in 1791, a ferry was used across the river. The construction of the bridge meant that taller ships could no longer pass this point, which is what made Gainsborough the last major port on the Trent. The tide is still flowing, so I spin the boat around just before we reach the pontoons. That way I can gently steer the boat towards the moorings as we push against the tide.
Right, so sorry for the weird lighting, but I'm trying to block the sun utilizing this umbrella that my mom gave us because
I can't be in the sun anymore.
it is too bloody hot.
And our background is beautifully lit, but
Yeah.
we are not beautifully lit. But
No, but if we make us beautifully lit, we're both in pain from the sun, and the background is a complete burned out mess. So welcome to the surface of the sun.
appreciate the side of the wharf here.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're in Gainsborough for the first time on the canals, although it's not the first time we've actually been here on the river. But for the first time by boat, we've arrived in Gainsborough. We have physically been here by bus to pick up some groceries and by train. Well, no, we left by train from here. Yeah. So we know that there's a little nearby. That's the important thing.
Trouble is, it's too hot to go anywhere just yet. Go
Yeah.
a bit later.
Yeah.
So the journey down was really straightforward, as predicted. And it was only when you did the turn to get on the mooring, which was absolutely the right thing to do. Like, you could have done it the other way, but it would have made it a bit more...
Yeah, I could have come on going downstream, but then we'd have to jump off, get the ropes in there, and...
You'd have been holding the boat.
Yeah, it made more sense to do it this way. So I did a little button hook and brought it back so that we were running against the current, and then that let me just pull up with no momentum and step off and put ropes on. So
the worst thing was, just as we got here, a cruiser came up behind us, and it slowed down for us. It was really very good that it slowed down for us, but it still had a wake. So
and as soon as they passed us, they went to like full throttle.
Oh, and then we got the wake.
So they threw even more weight.
So we're bouncing up and down, and the pontoon here is bouncing up and down. So that was not ideal.
And George is sitting up there tied to the roller ramp going, I don't know what's going on, and I'm very uncomfortable. So when we went to get him, he just tried running up the stairs and was like, I'm not the hell with this boat idea.
Yeah, halfway down here, well, actually, we were practically in Gainsborough, and I looked up and there was a vapour trail in the sky. And we hadn't seen a jet or heard a jet, so I was like, Michael, what's that? Also, it had a bit of red in it. I momentarily forgot Michael was colourblind, so he just saw the vapour trail and said it's a vapour trail.
I'm not entirely colourblind. I have colour confusion, but I lose red sensitivity, so especially when I'm looking up at the cloud, it just, to me, it looked mainly grey with a little bit of a pinkish hue.
And then we wondered if it was like just a fire, because we'd seen someone light a fire a bit further.
Yeah, with quite a bit of smoke.
Yeah, so that was it, just the smoke. And then while I was changing the batteries in the camera, you spotted the acrobatic. Well,
I looked back and I was like, oh, it must just be smoke from the fire, but it's gotten awfully high. And it's ascending.
And it was going
really
straight
fast,
up, yeah.
And it's, and it seems to be being preceded by 10, what I think are the red arrows in an acrobatic formation.
And then we got to watch, they were so far away, so we didn't really film anything. But we got to watch them.
They won't show up on the cameras, they were so distant.
We got to see a few acrobats, and they drew a heart with that arrow through it, and they did some, like, red and blue and white arches, and just white arches, and like some spinning and barrel rolls. And
yeah, so it was pretty neat. They were quite a long way away, and they were just sort of on the horizon, but it was a neat thing to see. George, where do you think you're going? So a tennis ball just sort of shot past us on the tide, so I think it's about maybe a 2.5 to 3 knot tide. Not super fast, a little bit faster than, like a decent walking speed. But it's going to shift on us in a few hours and be going the other way, so it'll be interesting to not just rise and fall on the dolphins.
Yeah, we should look at a mark and see where we are, because I'm not entirely comfortable here, but I know it's safe. But
well, looking at it, like you can see where the wet bit is.
Yeah.
So that was the highest tide recently.
Oh wow! So it's dropped quite a bit.
Yeah, about 4 feet.
Wow.
It's going to be interesting because overnight, of course, we'll go down. Tide will reverse. We'll come up. Tomorrow, we'll be on the morning. We'll be with the tide going the wrong way. We're going to wait till 1
when it turns
again for it to turn and then head on to Keedby. So
I know it's perfectly safe on these floating pontoons because they do go up and down, but I'm not entirely comfortable with it.
Yeah, well, they've been using buoyancy to do their job for quite a while.
When we weren't here.
Yeah, it's worked without us. It'll work with us. So yeah. So thanks for watching. Give us a thumbs up if you can see that thumb. Comment down below if you can see that finger. Subscribe if you haven't already, of course, and hit the bell if you want to get notifications.
And recording. I don't think we mentioned it in the introduction, but we're actually moored on a shortcut that leads down from the river. Whoops.
Stop adding words in that
I didn't mean to. Littleborough's this is the crazy one. Sego locum. Littleborough's.
Those little bros are fun.
Yeah. Littleborough's, or shut up.
Oh, so we're back in Gainsborough.
We are, for the first time on the canals, visiting Gainsborough. And, yeah, I just had to pull up to a little 90-degree hook
180
at the end.
degree.
180 degree, 290 degrees. Yeah, hook at the end and bring us back over to put us onto the... I'm going to do that again. That's a neat thing to see. George, where do you think you're going? No, you're not doing that. You're not escaping. Come on, inside the boat. No, just look at... I know.